Good morning, everybody on Facebook land. So, yesterday I was thinking very hard and just exercising and causing little electrical pulses in my brain by thinking about what kind of word am I going to develop that will explain everything about the intentions of the Jilly Juice meta mentality. And so then I was thinking about how Disney and his Imagineering, and that is trademarked. I looked it up, of course. And Disney is the one that shapes the minds and beliefs of everybody. I would even imagine that they understood that even the Bible was created by somebody who developed a storyline, and then Disney fed off of that and figured out how to create another storyline. And so then that's where all the Disney Imagineering came from. And of course, William Shakespeare and their storylines of Hamlet and Taming of the Shrew and all of that. And you have, of course, like the Epic of Gilgamesh and another storyline, which I'm not saying they're not true. Of course they're true, just different simulations. And it's not something that like, oh, wow, okay, that's so amazing. I mean, yeah, it is a different simulation, but like anything, you can create different simulations. We're in a supercomputer when you think about it. And so there's other storylines such as the Iliad and the Odyssey, and based upon a human that has gone through and edified and had specific understanding of how chemistry and biochemistry works and how the elements work together. And so it was teaching people how to drink, like Narcissus and all those, different gods of all the different fire and water and all that stuff. And so all these are different storylines. And I'm thinking like, okay, so what am I going to develop? Since I have a storyline just of my own that has been branded and trademarked, so to speak, and people know about the Jilly Juice, but Jilly Juice is more than just fermented cabbage, salt, and water. I mean, that's just the ingredients that caused all the energy when it first came out. But what is really the intention of the Jilly Juice? Well, it's synaptoneering. And that was really, and I was looking up, okay, what's another word for Imagineering? Because that's trademarked by Disney. Well, there's an Envisioneer, but then no, there's tech companies that use the word Envisioneer, which would seem like, yeah, okay, they envision something, here it is. You envision a website to be this and this, they will make it happen for you magically. Not even magic, it's just you're taking an idea and a thought process, and they have all access to the different rules and laws and coding, and they can make whatever you want to happen. So yeah, I could see Envisioneer would be something that a tech company would be using. Awesome. Then I'm thinking Synaptineer. Well, what's a synaptoneer? And we know that neural synapses is when how your brain functions, and when your neural synapses, goes off and doesn't, or goes haywire, then people get cattywampus and they get bipolar, or if they're not thinking at all of anything, then it atrophies, and that's where the pot and the cannabis and all the different drugs just cause people to go freaking not haywire, but they cause them to atrophy. That's why people lose their memory when they smoke a lot of pot, because it destroys their brain. And then when they do drugs, it fries their brain. Oh shit, yeah. So then I'm thinking like, okay, what does Jilly Juice do actually then? It's a synaptoneer. We are engineering our own memories by programming ourselves, because we've been programmed by the system. That's why we have the different blood types, or lack thereof. I mean, we have different blood types. And we've been programmed through education, okay, which is fine. You got to have a base foundation to work from, so I have no problem with whatever education's out there. And we have the different politics, we have different religions and spirituality and different scientific beliefs. So those were memories. Those were B cell and T cell memories created through the written word, through all the modes of the media. And then we have the B cells and T cells then sustaining certain memories that people have. And so sometimes people have certain strengths in areas that are detailed. So if they're like a type A or a type B, or they are left-brained, then they will go into the math and the sciences, and they'll go into the more of the detailed, the architecture type of stuff. And then they will exercise those B cell, T cell memories. They'll eat food to kind of sustain that memory for a certain amount of time. But then why do people break down in age? Because the B cells and T cells were becoming so numerous, weren't being released, and then the food was not regenerating them. And or else people would be living forever if they just ate food. No, the B cells and T cells were not being released. They were being housed and trapped in the colon and the lymph nodes and the different parts of the body. And then they were being cannibalized by their own immune system, because your immune system is one big, large negative entity. Not a bad thing. It's all the different memories. And so when I say that memory is developed and maintained by salt, water, and food, dealing with energetic pain and release and rebuild, mitigating cures, that means that you have to feel the energy of the body releasing and regenerating. What goes on when people are using cures to stop the pain is that they are stopping the energetic release, yes, but also stopping the energetic rebuild. And so when they're cured in a specific, look, or in a specific thought process, or in a specific religion, politics, and scientific dogma, then they're okay for a certain amount of time. But as you see, bodies break down. So yesterday I was talking about the cures, and they're like, oh my God, when you're born with no hearing and you're born blind, we can give you a cure to give you back your sight. We can give you a cure to magically give you back your hearing. And people are like, oh my God, this is so amazing. But then you don't realize that when you're feeling something like a pain and whatever, you have cancer or something, then you're going to the doctor to get a cure for that, right? And so that cure lasts for a certain amount of time, and then the pain comes back, or you get out of remission, or something else freaking breaks down. There's side effects to those cures. And so reversing the whole concept of a cure to take away your pain, now you have a cure to give you back your sight because you were born without it. Why were you born without it? Because there were certain things happened inside the womb and inside your genetics that had you be born without sight. But it's naturally, I don't say that's naturally. Even though that is nature, okay? Because nature can be altered at any point in time. And then when a person tries to go and do something that is a shortcut to then reverse that little thing and pretend like that little thing is not connected to everything else, then the body eventually builds up enough lymphocytes to then attack that specific cure. And then whatever was original when you came out will come back. But then how does the jelly juice? Well, you're rebuilding. The jelly juice and the food supply and feeling pain and not being cured is the rebuilding and having you earn the long cut, the privilege of getting back your sight, of getting back your hearing, of not being not having cancer, not having disease, chronic illness, and autoimmune disorder. Jelly juice is the actual earning of being on this earth, of evolving and adapting. But you're around 7.9 billion people with so many different memories in their B cells and T cells in their lymphatic system that you're taking them on. And that's why the cures were around, because if you had to constantly evolve on a major basis to everyone around you, you would be super, super sick all the time. But that's for someone who is weak. But the flu and the cold and all those different viruses were swirling around before COVID-19. Yeah, they were. And you knew that every flu season, people were dropping like flies or they're getting colds. I remember every single time when I go visit my family and there's a bunch of kids, those kids were dropping molecules everywhere, and I was picking them up, and I was always getting sick from being around my family that had children. And so then, that things are okay between spring and summer, but it was always the fall where there was something going on. And that's so ironic that it's called the fall, autumn. Oh yeah. The fall of mankind, the fall of a human, when they are not releasing those excess B cells and T cells. And so now in this dynamic environment, in this pandemic, because they're saying now that they're even parts of Europe and Philadelphia, they're putting the masks back on. COVID's coming back again. It's resurging, and I feel it. My dog feels it. The mucus is coming out. I'm blowing my nose. I'm needing to sleep a little bit more. Maybe a little bit hungry. That's what made me make the food that I made. Hey, Tiffany. So I made some pot sticker shells. And then when my husband comes home on Friday, I'm gonna make him some pot stickers. I'm gonna make the stuff in the middle, and then or the filling, and then I'm gonna make them some pot stickers, and then, you know, that'll be another food that I can make on my own. And so, but I know that there's all these variants that are so extraordinarily, exceedingly intense. And so if you're cured, then you won't know how intense they are until your body starts breaking down. And that's when people then break ankles, they break legs, they break bones. Anything that's weight bearing, they're breaking stuff because those little T cells and B cells and their lack of taking on all the food in the food supply because they're not eating, because they're always doing stuff, then the lack of food and all of their lymphatic system is devouring them, and then they are breaking down. And so that's why people can do something that's not really even that strenuous and break something. That's where osteoporosis comes from. It's from the lack of food and then the B cells and T cells eating away at you. And so the whole JJ meta mentality is to build not only your own memories from the food supply, but the whole JJ meta mentality is to create also your own defenses based upon your environment, and that you have a strong immune system, which is fed by the food supply. So when you go into a different microbiome and you're blowing your nose because you've been exposed to a different environment that has B cells and T cells of somebody else's, lymphatic system, that you're able to release. People are not releasing at the level that they should. And if you're releasing too much, you lose memory. If you're not releasing enough, you have so much memory that that memory then causes glitches and overheats. Obesity is like that. When somebody has so many memories that they are not releasing a lot, that's then also where cancer comes into play, because those memories are eating away at you. Because how can you have cancer and you're obese? You have all this substance. Because your vital organs, well, not even your vital organs, but those B cells and T cells are causing so much energy of minus that then plus has to happen somewhere. So then it triggers the body to create plus. Even though you look like you're a plus size, the body senses that there is imminent destruction, and so it has to produce growth over here. And you could say it's a mutation, but why do you have these different mutations? Why does Mother Nature always have a balance? Because there's always something that's going to take away from here so much. And so if something needs to be taken away from here so much in this area, then there's got to be something on the other side to balance that. Balancing forces. And so you're seeing right now with all this pandemic, and everyone's doing the therapies and the starvation diets and all the different remedies and stuff. Then here's the whole J juice. It actually happened in 2016. Somehow the universe in 2016 knew what was going to come upon us in 2020 or 2019. The universe knows. And when I discovered how extraordinarily energetic the J juice was in the beginning, when I first lost all that water weight, that's when I knew I was onto something. And it was just from there, I had to keep building and building. And so when kids are cognitively deficient, when you have neurological diseases, whether it's the end of your life or at the beginning of your life, you don't have enough of the B cell memories to sustain for you to remember how to speak, how to do the most basic things that someone like me and you that are watching this take for granted. That then there's areas of the mind that are so overly energetic that then, you're smart and wonder. That's what they call it, autistic savants, where they're so smart in this area, like Rain Man. He couldn't be on his own. He couldn't protect himself, but he definitely knew how to count cards. And Tom Cruise definitely knew how to exploit his own brother in that movie. It was a great movie. But that's kind of the predictive programming telling you that sometimes science can really develop something amazing, but then when you're doing something that's amazing, like a shortcut where you're trying to dock proteins to then cause more energetic responses in the brain, that sometimes then all the energy that's going towards that one area is not being distributed to the other areas. And so then you lose memory in other areas and you have just memory in this area. And this is where then, yes, that the autistic savants and the Rain Men and all that stuff happen, because there isn't an even distribution of the nutrients and the energy. And so salt water is action potential. That's what the synaptic neural synapses is, the action potential between two nerve endings linking together, and then you are producing worlds. When you're lacking the action potential, lacking the food, lacking substance, lacking whatever, the brain starts atrophying. And we see it when people are in their drugs and alcohol and other stuff, their brain atrophies. They even said that even alcohol atrophies the brain. They even say that drugs, like cannabis, atrophy the brain. Well, yeah, when you're doing so much cannabis, how can you remember anything after so many years of doing it? When you're in a fog and under a therapy, whether it's Prozac or some other type of antidepressant, your brain is atrophying because it's not being used. Because you don't want to feel the pain of the anxiety because of the predispositions that you have not figured out how to deal with and release. And so instead of actually facing your demons, so to speak, all your your predispositions, your B cells and your T cells, people go and take a therapy to atrophy their ability to release the stuff and deal with it and then regenerate and create a new memory. Because when you constantly have these traumatic memories in your body from past events or health issues or relationship issues or physical issues, and those are constantly circulating within your lymphatic system, that's why people go crazy. Some people have to turn to drugs because they're self-medicating. They haven't dealt with the actual facing of their issues. And so then they get lost in all the memories that need to be released. And that's when people live in the past all the time. They live in the past and they live for today, but they haven't figured out how to develop how to develop a pathway that isn't so based on everything in the past, but there's a certain foundation. Like you have to know how to eat, you have to know how to speak, you have to know how to breathe. Those are the basic B cell and T cell memories. You have to know how to watch out for danger, listen to indicators in your body when it's telling you that you need to blow your nose. There's basic memories that you have to know, and then you can build on top of that. That's called evolution, and that's called adaptation. Evolution adaptation is when you're building on the base foundation and you're increasing your awareness, you're increasing your intelligence. You're not always looking at mainstream or other types of outlets as if they are the reality, because they'll lead you down a fucking dark road. Look at people who are following mainstream media and everybody in the medical holistic system. They're falling fucking apart. And so then you have to then start taking in new information. And if the mainstream media is new information, then you've been living under a rock. So mainstream media isn't really new information. Mainstream media is just regurgitating the same bullshit over and over again. And so when someone says, okay, salt water isn't poisonous, you need to feed, they're salting in where you're bringing in the salts and the water and the food, and it's regenerating, and they're salting out, which people do to purify once a year so they can release all the excess memories that's causing the glitches, causing the cancer, disease, and chronic illness. And some people who are more obese than not need to do more of the salt water, but also offset it with water, because the antidiuretic hormone causes the bloating, water retention. Okay, and so then if that's too much for a person, then they have to go undergo surgery, gastric bypass or whatever, fine, good for you. But then you're going to have to deal with the pain of not only regenerating whatever they took from you from the gastric bypass, but then also having to finally deal with eating all the food in the food supply that you have not brought into your world, that you haven't assimilated to. So when you're eating new foods, when you're eating foods that you don't usually eat, then your body has to assimilate to that. Okay? And so that's why you constantly have to bring in not only new foods, diverse foods in your diet, but also bring in diverse information in your mind. You start reading stuff. Even if you're reading like a PubMed text that has all this stuff and it's so like full of jargon and words you don't even know what they mean, you read it and you look up the words. You read it, and that's where you are actually developing new neural pathways. Reading stuff that you don't ordinarily read is developing new worlds. Doesn't mean that you take everything that you're reading as for face value, because they have a particular world that they live in. But you can start developing new worlds by learning about the worlds that are out there that you have no idea existed. When you're watching stuff on YouTube or the reels on or Instagram, it's just pictures. It's just people playing with their hormones and wanting to entertain people as they are, dying. But when you want to live, you are developing new neural pathways. And so when I do the Facebook Lives, I'm using the auditory side of my brain to listen to myself. So I'm actually teaching myself. That's why I do these Facebook Lives every day, because I know if I don't hear it, then that I'm missing a component of the developing of the B cell and the T cell memories to then evolve. And so if I start listening to myself, which I do all the time, people think I'm crazy when I do it, but I listen to myself because there are things that I teach myself that I don't even know I'm teaching. Or I'm like, oh, wait, I should have expounded on here. Oh, wait, this is a mistake here. Oh, wait, now I have a new idea on top of here. You're welcome, Tiffany. And so listening to yourself is like, it's awesome if you have something to teach yourself. Do I want to listen to everybody else out there? Not necessarily, because how much conflicting information out there. And then people listen to almost everybody. Like, people send me videos and stuff to watch, and I'm like, dude, I don't want to listen to your video. I'm sorry. I don't want to listen to this. I need to listen to the things that I need to listen to, because you don't know what I'm trying to develop here. When people send me stuff, they think that they're enlightening me, and I know you're distracting me. They don't understand that, but I get it. They think that they have, this is like new. No, let me tell you, I'm on a particular path. If that is relevant in my world, I'll come upon it either now or maybe in the future. Or I already came upon it like 10 years ago, and you're not bringing anything new. So you have no idea where I'm at, and I'm not going to tell you where I'm at, because it's too much to do. So I pick and choose who I want to listen to based upon what is going on at the time. And so if you are in a world where you're listening to all the doctors out there and you're like, oh, this doctor said this, they're agreeing with you, Jillian, here, listen to this dude. I'm like, that's fine. But that's a doctor. Do you know that the doctors end up passed away at some point using their own procedures, promoting their own procedures? So I have no interest in listening to any doctor out there unless they're willing to give up their license, get out of the AMA, and say, hey, you know what? I was demonizing salt. I was promoting antibiotics and remedies and starvation diets, and I'm against that now. So you're never going to see a fucking doctor do that. So I don't want to hear anyone say, oh, listen to this doctor, because they're riding on the coattails of the death industry, which I understand is the balancing force of life. But, there's plenty of death doctors out there. Can you be a life doctor? No, you get rid of your fucking license. Get rid of your holistic license. Get rid of your allopathic, your homeopathic, your naturopathic license. And start walking the walk and talk and stop playing both sides of the fence. So you're never going to hear a doctor say that. So I don't want to hear anyone's doctor YouTube videos, because they're playing both sides of the fence. Same thing with the anti and pro V industry. All the doctors, oh yeah, oh my God, doctor this, doctor that. They're saying this and this and that. They're not even talking about salt and water and food. They're all about, oh, you should do a natural this and a natural remedy. And what the fuck is natural? Everything is natural. It's all intention. And so anyways, so I developed a word called Synaptineer. Okay, and it is a common law trademark. I put it on my website. My website's a business. It's an LLC. So Synaptineer is, you are developing your own neural pathways. You are developing the reality that you are living in and want to be in every single day. What you say, what you read, what you do, what you write on Facebook. That is the world that you are reinforcing and developing. And sometimes the worlds that are given to you, like the Bible and like, academia and politics, religion, and science, has words in there that actually negate everything that you're trying to do. So you're like, I want to live. And then you're following the Bible, you're following academia, you're following the medical holistic system, you're following politics, religion, and scientific dogmas. You're actually taking away everything that you're trying to do by following those dogmas. And so then you almost have to change the way you say things. No, you have to. You have to change the way you say things. You have to start developing. But how do you develop a new world when you have so many B cells and T cell memories giving you the words to speak, giving you the thoughts to think, giving you the idea to go and watch this guy on TV all the time? Well, then you have to release the old B cell. You have to deprogram. And that's layers and layers and layers and layers. It's like a freaking onion that is like 10 feet big and 5 feet wide or whatever. And you had to peel back those layers, and they are painful, and it stings to peel back the layers of programming. Because when you think you have been deprogrammed, no, there's another fucking layer that you didn't even know. Okay, and that's the thing about the whole JJ Meta mentality since 2016. But really, I've been deprogramming since 2011, because I started listening to another story besides the mainstream story. I started listening to the conspiracy stories. But that was the deprogramming, because I was able to get out of the mainstream world, right, and all the fear and all the other stuff. Well, there's a lot of fear even in the conspiracy world, but I was able to take on new stories and go down the rabbit holes. And then I lived in those rabbit holes for a minute and then realized it's another story, it's another programming that was being offered to me that I took on. But then that showed that I was able to change, that I was able to take on something different. And yeah, I shifted my blame. Yeah, I mean, I was, instead of blaming this, I was blaming this. And then instead of blaming that, I was blaming that. And so you realize after a few years of blaming, politics, religion, science, and blaming, food, water, and air, and blaming all the different things. Then I realized that the JJ Meta mentality then negates all the blaming. You don't blame anything, and you bring in something that releases stuff, so you're not blaming anyone or anything. But that's the holistic allopathic, is they have compartmentalized all the ingredients in the food supply, and they have created arguments around why you should be demonizing the water, why you should be demonizing GMO, why you should be demonizing salt and sugar and gluten. And then people are starving themselves. And then you see them passing it on to their kids. Oh, they're like, oh, don't eat this, it's poison. Don't eat that, it's poison. Don't eat. And then you see everyone in the Tower of Babel demonizing food. And so when they have like a diagnosable condition, and they hear about the water supply is all tainted with this chemical and that chemical, they're like, oh my God, it's the water supply. That's what caused my cancer, disease, and chronic illness. And so then now they have a huge like $10,000 water filtration system, and they still have fucking cancer. They're like, okay, I guess it's not the water. Then I guess it's the salt. So I'm going to take away all the salt in my diet. And then they atrophy, and then they die because you can't live without salt. And so that's the marketing. That's all of the memories that they've created for you. When you're reading stuff from the holistic allopathic world, when you're reading stuff from mainstream media and from all the different politics, religion, and science dogmas, and they're all about the end result supposed to be death someday, and they're just playing with all the ingredients in the world, then you're going to be given the arguments to then go and rebel against or go and promote. And so people aren't thinking for themselves, and they're heavily programmed. And so then I have a job now, which is my book, is to then give people the options to deprogram. And it is a layer by layer by layer by layer. And sometimes people get stuck between the layers of programming. When you get down to the prototype, you'll know, because nothing is going to affect you. Well, things will affect you, but you're not going to react the way you react. But you also will be developing the world. Because when you don't have all those programming, what are you going to do? You have no choice but to develop, because you've lost all the programming that someone organized for you to give you a meaning to your life, to give you a platform to work from. So then you have to go and develop now another platform. You have a base platform called eating salt and sugar and carbs and whatever, and your infrastructure, and you have a base platform of the economy of the day. But then now you have to develop then your world that you want to see within you. You can't legislate morals onto somebody else. And so then the whole Julius Meta mentality, obviously it's always been about individual, but then you will be developing your own individual platform of indefinite life. And then what are you going to do with your life? Then you're not going to want to go and legislate morals on someone else, because it's fruitless to go and legislate morals on somebody else. Yeah. And so then you start developing yourself. But then when you start developing yourself and you're living out loud, you're not keeping it to yourself. You're not keeping yourself from other people as far as virtual. Then you're dropping seeds, giving somebody the choice, but you're not ramming that choice down someone's throat. And that's the power of the whole JJ Meta mentality and the metaverse and social media. It's how you use it, of course, and the written word and the typing. And so when you're typing stuff, you'll be regurgitated. Like I regurgitated so many stories. I regurgitated the Sumerian pantheon. I regurgitated the Greek pantheon. And I have it all written, right now. And there's so much that I've written that I'm throwing away because it's all stories. I'll acknowledge them and maybe reference them for context, but they're not going to be the main points of my story. But at first you have to regurgitate and understand the world that you live in first. And then when you understand the world that you live in, then you start developing the world that you want to live in. And that comes with reading stuff. That comes with typing. That comes with listening to yourself. And not necessarily even listening to me all the time. People do sometimes, but I don't want people to listen to me all. I mean, people do. And that's great because they're trying to get themselves in a certain way. And it's reassuring them that they're on the right path. But I want you also to listen to yourself. I want you to hear yourself. I want you to, when you write something, I want you to see what you've written to yourself. I mean, you can have your own journal and eventually there'll be a Jilly Juice app. But when you think about it, that's not even necessary at this point. When you get on, go get Microsoft Word, get a laptop and start writing. Start typing, just whatever. Start creating worlds. Every single time you type in a new word, that's a new world. Synaptineer is a new world. When you're developing your own neural synapses, your own worlds, you are developing the future and the present. And when you're doing the waterfalls for the first time, you're releasing the old world. You're releasing the old programming. That's why biochemically has the future. Well, if you want something new in your world, you have to do it biochemically. When you want to have a new thought process, it has to be done biochemically first. I mean, yeah, you can have the thought about, okay, I want this, but that's fleeting because remember, your brain is attached to your gut. Remember the gut-brain connection? So if your gut has all these B cells and T cells, whatever it is that you're trying to do at a superficial level, like a self-help course or a cure, it's only temporary. Because then all those memories get lost in your gut and eaten by the B cells and T cells that don't want that new memory because there's so many of the old memories still in your gut. And so you have to realize that, yes, your gut is the first brain when you think about it. And then this brain is your second brain. They have it all backwards. They're like, oh, yeah, your gut is your second brain. No, your gut is your first brain. And it's what drives what is manifesting. That's why I say the CPU. Your gut is the central processing unit. And when you have and then your lymphatic system is attached to your gut. People are like, well, where's the lymphatic system? It's attached to your gut. It is your gut. Your gut is kind of like it's a superficial overarching name of where the region is. Like, okay, that's your belly, your gut. People are like, oh, that's your digestive system. No, it's your lymphatic system. It's your first brain. And I need to make sure I say that. Because there's still so many assumptions of what the first brain is and what the second brain is. No, the first brain is your gut, which is your lymphatic system. And then your second brain is this brain. And then the heavy negative is your lymphatic system. The heavy positive is the food supply. And so we have some people who are on diets, not bringing in the food supply, but their lymphatic system is fucking strong. I mean, that's what the medical holistic system does. They reinforce the lymphatic system and then are starving you. Because, oh God, the low sodium diets, oh God, you're on cancer, where I'm going to be a nutritionist and say, okay, I beat cancer because I starved my fucking body. And so then become nutritionists and starve people. Oh, but they're heavily reinforcing the immune system. Okay, that's great, but you better bring in all food in the food supply. Oh, but it's painful. I don't want to eat this food. It's poison. And then that's where people starve themselves and they weigh next to nothing. There is no substance to them. And they're also putting off an image of the little six pack and the little cute little body and whatever. And that's great for if you want to go and procreate or sell your body on Facebook to go and get likes and all this other shit. But when it comes down to survival, those people who are superficial ain't going to fucking survive because they weigh next to nothing. And this world is going to cannibalize them because it's so dynamic. And their immune system is so strong because they're taking on all people's microbes. So if you're not bringing in a vast amount of food to deal with all the microbes that you're taking in, guess what happens? Your friends and family and all of your social capital are going to cannibalize you. And it's happening. Look at people out there. They're working themselves to death. They're on social media themselves to death. They're trying to put out an image and all this other stuff. They're taking their diet pills. They're starving themselves. They're fasting all the time. Oh God, you name it. They're doing it. It's crazy. And so you don't need to have, in a first world, what happened in World War II, when you can psychologically get people to starve themselves, when you can psychologically engineer what an aesthetic beauty is when they weigh next to, when they're twiggy, when they're emaciated. The 1950s women like, you know, Sophia Loren and all those, and Jane Mansfield and Marilyn Monroe, they were the healthy women in body, but they had their own issues. That's why they passed away. But we now have gone away from the body types of the Jane Mansfields and the Sophia Lorens and the Marilyn Monroes, and now we've gone to this way of either you're so skinny or embracing your obesity. And I don't think we should be doing either side of it. There should be a balance in between relative to the environment. But that's the Imagineering of Disney. It's the Imagineering of all of the fashion industry and all of the Hollywood celebrities. And of course, science and all the plastic surgery and the Botox and all the superficial people that want to send off an image. And I'm like, not playing that game anymore. Been there, done that. This is about survival. If you want to survive this next world and the transition between the old world and new world, you got to let go of all that programming. And it's painful. And it's layers. When you think you've figured out, nope, another layer. Believe me, I thought I figured out, several months ago, and then wow, another layer of shit that I just realized. And that's from every single viral variant that I've been exposed to and the pain that's attached to it. That was a layer of programming that was released, and then a new programming that I've developed myself then came into place. And so you can program yourself, but you got to release the old programming. And I'll tell you, it's difficult. Some people rely on the old programming because that's where they got their big house from. They've painted themselves in a corner. Hold on a second. I gotta check on my dog real quick. Twiggy, are you okay? All right, I gotta go, but just wanted to say I gotta go. She was coughing up a hairball, but yeah, this environment's very aggressive. So you guys, it's not too late to start the J juice. It's not too late because it's only get more intense, and it's already very intense. So, all right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.